Well, hi again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football, and this is the NFL Preview Show, playoff division weekend coming up here. It's Tuesday. It is January 13th. The 17th will be the first games. There'll be two on Saturday, two on Sunday. The wild card weekend has just finished, was done last night with a Houston win at Pittsburgh, and we'll start today by talking a little bit about Mike Tomlin. And instead of being fired or released on different accord, Mike steps down. I think it's a great decision for him if that were one of the options of him not being the coach anymore. But let's start with talking about Mike Tomlin. And Joey, if there are as many people in today's NFL that have done as much or more as Mike Tomlin has in the 19 years that he's been the Pittsburgh head coach. And by the way, it's been about 60 years and they've had a total of 3 coaches ever since the late 60s, early 70s with Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and then Mike Tomlin in that order took over that franchise. What a stabilizing force that he's been. I'll just put it this way. When the former CEO and executive of the NFL Hall of Fame, Dave Baker, when I met him once, he said to me, and what a tribute, I'm a nobody. But he said, for all that you did for the game and for all that you're going to do for the game, thank you. And for him to say something like that to me, for him to say that to Mike Tomlin, that would have some significance for obvious reasons. But he said it to everybody for just letting them know how much the league was better because of him. Joey, first and foremost, Joey Clinkscales, former general manager, scouting director, been with several different organizations, also as a player. Brian LeBel, our NFL and NCAA analyst. I'm Harper LeBel. Welcome to the show, everybody. Joey, let's start with you. Mike Tomlin, in your opinion, what has he done, in my opinion, to make the game better?
Wow, he's done so much. I mean, he from a competitive standpoint, from a young guy to take the job at, I think he was 38 when he first took the, maybe he was 35 when he first took the job as head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, he was a guy that he was interviewed through the he was working with the Vikings, I believe, as a defensive, I don't know if he's the coordinator or just a defensive position coach, but at the recommendation of John Wooten and the Fritz Pollard, Mr. Rooney interviewed him, and he was blown away by the interview with Mike Tomlin because he knew nothing about Mike Tomlin. So he brought him in for a second interview, and basically, after the second interview, they got a deal done on the spot. That's how impressed he was with the leadership potential that Mike had, just his charisma, just the toughness, just, again, the leadership ability, all those things, those traits you want in your head coach. Mr. Rooney recognized that in Mike Tomlin at an early age. And for the better part of 19 years, he has led that organization with class and dignity. He is quick-witted, as we all know, from all his press conferences. But the leadership that he provided for that organization, it was a stabilizing force throughout the 19 years that he was there. Again, he is he is a coach that never had a losing season in 19 seasons, and I'm not sure that will ever happen again in the National Football League for a coach to come in and do that. And really for the better part of his tenure, well, I shouldn't say for half his tenure there, he had one quarterback, which is Ben Roethlisberger. When he took over, Ben was still the coach, and they went to 2 Super Bowls. They won 1 and lost 1. But pretty much after that, I mean, it's been a roulette wheel of quarterbacks that they've had there, and with the exception of the 42-year-old quarterback that they just have, I mean, you really, those quarterbacks have been there and left there and really not done anything. So for him to not only manage that, but manage some of the personalities that he's had. I mean, when I was with the Raiders a while back, we used to kid that Mike Tomlin should automatically go in the Hall of Fame, because when you have to deal with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell and some of those characters that he had, and really those guys were really good under him. They weren't causing much trouble. It was when they left that you saw the personalities that those players had, and you just shaking your head like, wow, he had to put up with this every day for years and years, and he was able to keep that under control. But for Mike Tomlin, I don't think he'll want to work this cycle. Quite frankly, I don't see a job that I would think he really wants. Now, I could be wrong, but I think after 19 years, I think you probably want to take a year off. He's probably a little burned out. I keep hearing stories about him being a little tired, and so he'll have opportunity for whether he wants a job this year or next year, if he sits out a year. He'll everything that comes open will have his name on it. Somebody will associate him with the job, even the Ravens job this year. I mean, you'll have people that will associate him with the Ravens job this year, which is interesting. And we'll get into that at some point. But he's done a lot for this game. And again, he'll if he left today, he's a Hall of Fame coach and a coach that's never had a losing record in this league. And this league has been going on a long time, so there's a lot to be said for that.
Brian, you were 11 years old when he took over with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So basically most of your life, he's been that guy. Steady force, obviously the longevity, and in one place at one time. There's some staying power with that. Joey was correct with the Super Bowl appearances, and he was 193 and 114 and 2 ties. He's won a Super Bowl. He lost one, so he'd been in 2. He was 34 when they hired him, so there was a little correction there. But obviously, just a young man, and he takes over for Bill Cowher, who you probably don't remember when you were a kid at 11, 10, 9 years old. But Cowher was one of those guys that when you look at him and go, man, this dude's been in a couple of bar fights, and he's certainly one that you would want to have on your side, former player. And then they go with Tomlin, and as Joey said, he had a great impression on the Rooneys, and the Rooney rule is put in place is where you have to have at least one minority coach that interviews for the job when you're hiring a head coach, because it didn't used to be that anyone would get hired or even get an interview. So it was a very interesting perspective that the league wanted to take into place. But Brian, first and foremost, your perspective in looking at a guy that's been such a maintaining force there with the Steelers, and they're always relevant. They win the division last game of the year this year. But Mike was a little burned out maybe and just wanted to take some time for himself.
Well, it's hard not to lump him in with Harbaugh, right? I don't want to. You want to keep them separate, but because they've both been at their respective teams for so long and they battled, and let's be honest, the Bengals and the Browns for the last 20 years have not really been relevant for the majority of the time. So in most cases, you got the Ravens and the Steelers going head to head as far as who's going to win the AFC North. And a lot of times that meant either home field advantage or one of these two teams was, going to be the real contender to knock off either the Patriots or Peyton Manning's Colts or whatever it was. So it feels like, really the end of an era, right? It's just that era of football, we've kind of moved on from it. And it's really hard to imagine the Steelers without Mike Tomlin, right? It's just, he's been, I don't want to say he has been the face of the franchise, but when you think of the Steelers, his face, his name is one of the first, 2 or 3 that really pops up, right? You can talk about the Ben Roethlisbergers, you can go through like the James Harrisons, whatever else, but he's really, his success and what he's done for that organization has been, it's unprecedented, right? 19 consecutive years of winning seasons, or at least we're not going to finish under 500. It's unheard of, right? In any sport, at any level, it's absolutely asinine that he was able to do that. And I don't think that'll ever be topped. And, if he's done, he'll go out as one of the best to do it. But, the fact that he was hired, he's 34, he's still a relatively young guy. A lot of people are still going to call him up and, at least request that maybe, hey, we'd like to have your services. We'd like you to come run our organization and come coach our team. But, you tip your cap to him because it's just the way he did it. And, the Steelers were an organization with, like you mentioned, with Cowher and, what they were able to do as far as very few coaches. It's like what the Packers have done with quarterbacks, right? You don't have a lot of guys. And it's because they've done such a phenomenal job of getting the right guy in the building. And Tomlin is just, he's one of those guys in that lineage of just, we had the right guy at the right time and we pushed the right buttons, and Tomlin did, almost each and every Sunday. And, his record speaks for itself.
It certainly does. And someone who's watching may go, hey, this is supposed to be a preview show. Get on with the preview. We'll talk about it, but let's give a little tribute to the man. Joey, I want to ask you a follow-up question from a front office perspective. my understanding is that the Steelers have been one of those organizations. They will never outspend anybody. They are not cap friendly if you're a player. And they've had a real difficult time, especially with the latter part of Cowher's tenure there in Pittsburgh, and then the early part of Mike Tomlin of letting guys go. They were not going to overpay for it. I remember Carnell Lake, Greg Lloyd, you had Kevin Green, you mentioned Kirkland. There was one Pro Bowler after another that decided to leave and go elsewhere and get the money and not stay there. Talk a little bit about the difficulty between a general manager, personnel directors, and head coaches, and obviously assistants, and trying to manage the spider web of a cap when you've got an owner that says we're not going to do this, and losing so many great players. Now you get to keep Ben. They decided to pay him, but they weren't going to pay everybody on that team. Do you have any comment that? And you were a former player there. I mean, you played in Pittsburgh, so you understand that. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the organization. It's just, it is what it is. They're Atlanta, Tampa, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and I think there was one, New Orleans were very difficult places early on in league history. They were notorious for not going to be, if you wanted to get paid, you weren't going to go there. You go to Washington, you go to the Raiders, you go to some other organization. Give me your perspective on that and whether or not I'm right or wrong in how I'm assessing this, but just the difficulty that Mike had to go through.
Well, I think in this organization, especially, how you're perceived from the outside, from a character standpoint, all those things matter. And I think their philosophy is it's a lot better to get rid of a guy a year too early than a year too late, because they've been burnt by getting rid of guys a year too late. If we're going to be quite honest here, they probably got rid of Ben Roethlisberger 2 or 3 years too late. And I think they got rid of Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, and they probably at the right time, maybe a year too soon, because you don't want to sink a lot of money into older guys. Which is something they did this season. They spent the most money on defense of any team in the National Football League in the offseason this year. And look what they got. When you invest in a lot of older guys, when older guys get hurt, the recovery time and the process to recover is a lot longer. With younger guys, let's be quite frank, if you got guys leaving their first contract, going to the second contract, and you sign those guys, it's a lot better than signing a guy to a big deal that's going into his third contract, because that means he's probably over 30 years old. The propensity for injury to happen is a lot more. There's a lot more risk there, is what I'm trying to say. So if you're going to be risk adverse, then you're going to. Let
me interrupt you real quick. There's also a higher cap value. A guy that's making $5 million can't be replaced the same way that a guy that's making $1.3 million. You can get 3 other guys to replace him in terms of your cap. So clarify that for everybody.
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, so you have after a guy's been vested, then there's a veteran minimum, especially if a guy's like in year 8 or 9, then he walks in the door and he can't be paid a rookie salary. There's a veteran minimum. Okay, so now they have a larger practice squad. So when I was assistant GM, there was only 8 guys on the practice squad. Now there's 16, 17 guys on the practice squad, and you can put veterans on the practice squad that don't come in at the beginning of the season. That way, the contracts aren't guaranteed. Anytime a veteran, a vested player, makes the active roster, then technically his contract is guaranteed through that year. If you cut him during the year, you still have to pay out his contract. Yep. Where if a guy goes on the practice squad and you bring him up off the practice squad, his contract is not guaranteed. So there are a lot of little loopholes in there. Sure. But from a salary standpoint, it's harder with the way they do it as far as building a team. Their philosophy is we're going to build through the draft. Okay, so and that's the way they've always done it. So they haven't been a team that's gone out and got a ton of free agents unless they were offensive linemen. They've historically gone out and signed 1 or 2 different offensive linemen who may have been a little older, who fit their system historically, and they've done that. Like the Alan Fanekas of the world, and I can name 2 or 3 other guys that they got from other teams that they brought in, and those guys fit right in. However, historically, they're one of the teams that have always believed in building through the draft. We're going to draft the right players, and we're going to develop those players to be good players. And for the most part, they have. But in today's, it's just like college NIL, the way pro football is. Sometimes you have to go outside of what you do to get the players who you think can be plug and play players. And in doing that, you have to pay those guys. Those guys aren't coming over on minimum salaries.
Yeah, very interesting how the cap and the dynamics of it are effective here. Brian, Jonathan Gannon, Raheem Morris, John Harbaugh, Kevin Stefanski, Pete Carroll, Mike McDaniel, Brian Dabble was let go, Brian Callahan, both of them during the middle of the year, and now you add Mike Tomlin. There's 9 jobs right now that are open. That's a higher number than average. Usually it's about anywhere from 4 to 6. And this year there's 9. So, and we may not be done yet, right? Green Bay still has some issues regarding LaFleur and being able to sign him to a longer term deal. I don't know if there's anything else out on the table, but there could be after the division weekend. Someone may say, I want to step down too. I don't know, but right now we're at 9. Give me your perspective on what you're thinking now with the replacements and whether Mike comes back and plays for another year or whether he coaches in 2026, or he takes a little bit of time off and gets to know his family again. Regardless of that, what's your thought here about having 9 different teams now that are looking for head coaches?
Well, I think it's interesting because I think the belle of the ball right now is John Harbaugh more than likely, right? So there's a lot of teams that are kind of waiting. I think it's going to kind of be a domino effect. Tomlin kind of throws a wrench in that because if he comes out tomorrow and says, hey, I'm not interested in coaching, I'm not interested in whatever. And more than likely, there's teams already reaching out, right? Teams have already reached out today. They're talking to Tomlin's agent. They're talking to Tomlin's people trying to say, hey, if he's interested, we would love to have him interview, see if this is the right place for him. So I think it's just going to kind of a wait and see. I don't think any of these guys really are in a rush. It's not college, so you don't have to go do any recruiting, right? There's no transfer portal. A lot of teams right now, you're kind of sitting on your hands waiting for free agency in the draft. So not any rush. And I'm sure these guys that have been tenured for Harbaugh and Tomlin have been where they were forever. So this would be a pretty significant change on them. A change of scenery is something that they haven't had for a couple decades. So I don't think there's going to be any rush, but I think realistically, once either Tomlin decides he's not going to coach and then Harbaugh's the guy that decides to go, whether it's New York or whatever it might be, I think you're going to start to see the dominoes kind of align and, we'll start to see teams signing guys and we'll have some decisions going forward.
Yeah, and Joey, usually it was Super Bowl weekend that they would make a final decision, but for obvious reasons, there are some coaches that if they are still coaching, they're not available to leave. So it may be a week or so afterwards, but usually the dominoes start to fall around Super Bowl weekend. At least it has in the past.
Yes, and the way it used to be, that was the way it went because a lot of the coaches that were being hired were actually on some of those playoff caliber teams. Now you have a lot of pretty good coaches that have been released out of their contracts or fired before the Super Bowl. So now you have a window of time. Usually there's no business done the week prior to the Super Bowl because the NFL wants all their business conducted and focus on the Super Bowl.
Right.
So you'll never hear of any hirings or firings during the week of the Super Bowl. Now, after that happened or 2 weeks prior to that, some of those things can happen. But if let's just say one of the assistant coaches with the 49ers, let's just say Saleh, because his name is big. If he gets a job, you won't hear about it. There may be rumors about it, but there'll be nothing done about it until after the Super Bowl because his team is still in the hunt and they're still playing.
Yeah. Very interesting how that works out. But again, we started with the coaches carousel. Mike Tomlin is no longer the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He stepped down earlier today. So if breaking news for most, and if you're not aware of that, that's just one of those stories that you will find out more about it and the reasons behind it. Certainly time will tell. But he is no longer the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers after 19 years and 193 victories. I'm sure he's going to want to come back somewhere and at least get to 200. He's a Hall of Famer anyways, but for obvious reasons, Everyone wants a little bit more, and maybe if you get Shula or Belichick, the record, that'd be something amazing. All right, guys, we do have some games to talk about. First one will be on Saturday, 4:30 kick on this one in Denver. Broncos getting a chance to rest up. And Joey, I'm going to start with you. They've got the number 3 defense overall, only giving up 18.3 points a game. They're 11th in passing, 16th in rushing, 14th in scoring, but really the Broncos and their defense have been where it's at. Where I am confused is that the Bills are 15th in passing. They're first in rushing with 159 yards a game. They're 4th overall in scoring. It's going to be the Bills offense, obviously, against the Denver defense. Give me your first perspective on this one. And because they've had some time off, does Denver have a distinct advantage here?
Well, I think they have an advantage because they're playing at home. Okay. I don't know if they have an advantage, a huge advantage by being off, because a lot of times those teams that have buys, the number 1 seeds, they don't always start the game like they're really ready to play. It usually takes a minute for those guys to get going. However, I would say that they have a distinct advantage because they have a great defense. Okay, and I think the defense is going to rule the day, especially when Buffalo's going from the frozen tundra up there to 5280 altitude in Denver, and you have a defense that's on fire like the Broncos are. They will probably do things similar to the way Jacksonville did. They'll probably try to stop the run and force Josh Allen to put his Superman cape on and beat him. And I'm not sure he can in Denver with the way that they play defense. And, again, they have a corner who was the defensive player of the year last year in Denver. So, they will take one guy, maybe 2 guys out of the game on defense, along with being able to rush the passer. So it'll be interesting, but I really expect Denver to come away with this win.
Brian, how about you? The crowd in Denver is amazing. It's not Mile High Stadium. I've been there, even though it doesn't exist anymore. When I was there, those metal I-beams and the brackets that were the base and the cornerstone of that building would get shaking and making so much noise that even the camera that was trying to watch the game, and there was one that had a clock, and it was just shaking all over the place because of the crowd and everybody jumping up and down. It really was like an earthquake. But the crowd is fantastic. They love their team. Home field advantage, number 1 seed, great defense. Do the Bills have a chance at all? Should they even get off the bus? Should they even make the trip?
I think the game plan for the Bills is going to be stopping the run and getting Bo Nix uncomfortable. I think the key to success for them is you got a young quarterback in his first playoff experience. It is at home, but Buffalo's got a lot of guys on the other side that have played. They've been here, right? This isn't new for them. They've been on the other side. They've been to Arrowhead. They've been in hostile environments. This is nothing new for them, right? This is just it's another game. And, Denver is a very good defense, and I think that's been their strength all year. But I think the game plan for the Bills is going to have to be making Bo Nix uncomfortable, trying to get him off his spot. And if you can get him to make a mistake or two, right, flip field position, maybe spot you a couple of points, I think it's going to be crucial. And I think it's going to be difficult for them to establish the run. Because if you go back and look what Jacksonville did, they said, hey, Josh Allen's great, whatever, but this is the number 1 running team in the league. We're going to stop James Cook. We're going to limit the run game. And they did exactly that. Buffalo was still able to find a way to squeak it out. I think this team is good enough to do so. They don't have a ton of star power. I think if you look at the Broncos defense, there's players. We talked about the Texans yesterday. They got all pros and Pro Bowlers to boot everywhere as well. The Broncos do. So I think it's really going to come down to Buffalo's defense and whether or not they can make Bo Nix uncomfortable and make him look like it's his first playoff experience, and whether or not they can use that to his advantage. Because if he comes out and he finds some confidence in the first quarter, in the first half, and they get rolling, it's going to be a very long Saturday afternoon for the Buffalo Bills.
Joey, Brian brings up a very good point. Are the Broncos still playing with house money with the young Bo Nix at quarterback? And 2, if the Bills do not win, does this begin to try to chip away even further at the fact that, we didn't have Kansas City, we didn't have to play them there. The lane was wide open for us to get to the Super Bowl. We just don't have enough guys ready to play. And the Bills as an organization have to rebuild and find a different way to try to win a Super Bowl and get themselves back into one?
Well, I think as far as Bo Nix is concerned, I think he's ahead of where they thought he would be at this point in his career, going into year 2 as a starter. But the thing I like about Bo Nix is even when he is not the greatest passer, he is really electric with his feet running the ball. I mean, that's another aspect of the game that they're going to have to, as far as the Bills, they're going to have to deal with. They're going to have to deal with when things break down. That they're going to have to deal with this kid on the ground running the ball, and I'm not sure. Again, if I'm betting, I'm probably taking Denver in this game because I think as a team they're a much better overall football team. Obviously, at the skill position, I think Denver's better. I think the Buffalo's better, but I wouldn't bet on Buffalo.
They don't have any receivers. They don't have any healthy receivers anymore, right? That's a big detriment, wouldn't you say, Joey?
Yeah. Oh, without question. I mean, Denver would win on the receivers if you were taking position by position. Denver has that. Their left tackle is a left tackle. Right, was first team All Pro this year. So Bo Nix has some protection up there. Along with Denver has a pretty good running game as well. So it'll be interesting how this plays out. But again, I think I would take Denver in this game.
Brian, moving Josh Allen off his spot, generally speaking, the 4-man pass rush that Denver has been so good this year that they haven't had to bring linebackers. Do you think they will, just to kind of make him throw early to a wide receiver that he's not used to throwing to, or a tight end that really isn't his number one guy?
No. The last time Josh Allen faced a pass rush like this was Houston. I think it was a Thursday night game, and the Texans were able to get pressure with 4, sometimes with 3, and it was a very ugly game. I mean, the Bills, they stayed competitive, and obviously it was closer than what the score indicated. But I think that's the best indicator of what they're going to see on Saturday. I think it's going to be replicated because this Broncos team is relentless up front. I think the Texans are the best defense in the league, but if you want to go pass rush for pass rush, I mean the Broncos are right behind them. They're right there, and it's just they're going to ask a lot of Josh Allen because they're going to move him around a lot just because they're going to get pressure. They're going to get after him. And like Joey said, the Superman cape's going to have to come on because he's going to have to make 3 or 4 plays in this game. Maybe when the lane's not there, the throw's not there, he looks, dead to rights, and he's able to escape and get out of the pocket like he's done so many times. And he's going to have to make something happen. But if he's not able to do that, I kind of agree with what Joey's saying. It's really difficult to see the Broncos off a bye week, right? They got a veteran head coach in Sean Payton who's been here before. They're at home. They're in a very tough environment to play in. The altitude, among everything, right? We talked about all year, the 5280 on the helmets. It's very, very difficult to go win there. Phenomenal fans, great home field advantage, and it's going to be a tall task for the Buffalo Bills. I'm not saying they can't do it, but if you look at everything, right? The injuries, who's healthy, who's rested. It's at this point, it looks like all signs and indicators are kind of leaning towards Denver on Saturday.
Well, they're the number 1 seed for a reason. They were 14-3. Buffalo 12-5 during the regular season. Buffalo, its second road playoff game. They were in Jacksonville this last weekend. They win by 3. Go ahead, Joey.
Well, I want to add this, that if the Bills find a way to lose this game and lose it bad,
could be another coach, new coach.
That could be. Yep, it could be another coach that we'll be talking about next week, because Harbaugh would fit quite nicely in Buffalo if something like that happened. So I wouldn't be surprised. I'm just saying. Do I expect it? I don't. But would I be surprised if it happened? Absolutely not.
You never know. Yep. Maybe change the scene, because the idea right now is Buffalo is championship or bust, right? They've been here. They've been the AFC Championship game. They've been here.
All the big time quarterbacks.
5 years. Yeah.
All the big time quarterbacks are gone. And so this is Josh. This was supposed to be Josh's year to get over the hump.
I mean, the AFC right now is C.J. Stroud, rookie, second-year quarterback, rookie in the playoffs, second-year quarterback, rookie in the playoffs. That's what you got right now. So, they're far and away the most experienced team in the dance still, right? They're still maybe San Francisco, but all the guys that have played are all on IR right now. So you got a bunch of backups and third string guys that haven't really tasted playoff football yet.
It'd be interesting to see. That's why I brought it up. I wanted to know what you guys thought if Buffalo does not win this ball game, and will that be the beginning of the end, or at least a change in the regime that exists today? Obviously, free agents and that's a big part of it. But we're going to see. So Buffalo, a little bit different pressure on them to win this ball game and advance and hopefully get to the AFC title game. But they've got to go through Denver to do that. Denver being the number 1 seed, they did not have a game last week. They had a chance to rest up their guys. And so we'll see how this one turns out. 4:30 is the kickoff for this one. At 8 o'clock, this will be on Fox. This is game 2. Both of your number 1 seeds have to play on Saturday, and that includes Seattle. And for obvious reasons, Seattle is top 10 in everything. Passing their number 8, rushing their number 10, scoring their number 3, and defense their number 1 with 17.2 points per game that they give up. They bring everything, and now they've got the 12th man, that dirty turf that they have there, the football-shaped form in one of the end zones. It's going to be loud and dirty, and there'll be Starbucks coffee and salmon tacos everywhere. But Joey, first and foremost, San Francisco kind of limps in. A lot of injuries there, but boy, they're so talented and focused. What's going to be the difference in this game for you?
Well, the difference in the game will be if San Francisco can get into the end zone. And I'm not sure they're going to be real effective doing that. And that means running the ball, winning the line of scrimmage. I'm not sure physically that they can do that versus the Seattle front and the secondary. And, if McCaffrey can, again, I keep talking about a Swiss Army knife. He's going to have to do that and more for them to have a chance to win this game because Seattle is so talented on defense, at cornerback, at linebacker, on the defensive line. That's why they were one of the top 3 defenses in the league. And I would venture to say the teams, the Houston, the Denver, the Seattle, they were probably the top 3 defenses in the league, which is why they're still playing right now, because they can really play defense. And the 49ers, we keep waiting on their demise because they've had so many injuries. But Kyle Shanahan has done such an excellent job of getting this team prepared. And now you lose your tight end to ACL last week, so he's out. You just wonder how far they can keep continuing to go. I mean, again, Kyle has done a masterful job. I mean, they've had injuries at receiver, tight end now, all over the place, linebacker, 2 linebackers. But they keep chugging along. They keep finding a way to win. So I give them kudos, and I would be totally surprised if they won. However, if they found a way to win this game, they would automatically probably become the NFC favorite to do it, because you can't have that many injuries, get this far, and still be playing and not be the favorite. That means you're doing a masterful coaching job.
Brian, the bookends of this season for San Francisco and Seattle, they played in game 1. San Francisco goes on the road. They win in Seattle. It was 17-13 is the final there. Last game of the season, Seahawks go into San Francisco. Kind of a must-win there for the 49ers. 13-3 is the final there. So as Joey said earlier, San Francisco has to be able to get in the end zone for obvious reasons. They've been able to do that. I gave the numbers for Seattle, but San Francisco, they're 10th in the league in scoring, and they're 13th defensively. They give up 21.8 points a game. They're 5th in passing right there. Brock Purdy doesn't have great numbers because he missed half the season with an injury, but he's been one of those steady guys ever since he got the starting nod there in San Francisco. He's got some playoff experience. What do you expect out of the Niners?
Well, it's tough because this is if you watch this team, with all the injuries, everything they will do this season, the one group that's really stifled them, that's kind of made them look very bad on offense is the Seattle unit, right? It's just been, and that game a couple weeks ago, that was for the 1 seed, right? That was a huge game, and it wasn't even close, right? Now Seattle's offense didn't fare much better, but it just, everything that San Francisco was doing got shut down. And if you like points, and if you got a rooting interest and just you want to see a high scoring, championship round, if you want to see a high scoring Super Bowl, I almost think you got to cheer against the Seahawks and the Texans going forward, right? Because it's just I can imagine a Super Bowl with those two teams where you wouldn't have a touchdown. You give those coordinators an extra week to prepare, the final score might be 4-2 or 6-3. It's just, and Denver's in that conversation too, but there's just not a lot of points to be found, and it magnifies the game. Brock Purdy can't throw 2 interceptions. He did against Philadelphia. His defense picked him up, but he can't do that if they want to beat Seattle. He's got to play a clean game. McCaffrey's going to have to play a great game, whether it's in the passing attack, whether it's rushing. I need Trent Williams healthy. I don't know if Ricky Pearsall is going to be there. It's all hands on deck, but you got Jake Tongas is going to be your number one target, your backup tight end. Is he going to be my red zone guy? I mean, if Shanahan finds a way to do it, I know Coach of the Year is a regular season award, but at this point, I feel like just out of respect for what he's done this season with this roster, I think the playoffs included, you got to throw it his way because, San Francisco's just they're like Joey said, I don't know how they're still playing football. I really don't. 2 months ago, I would have said this team is done, right? I may not have said it on the show, but I would have said behind closed doors, like, there's no way. The Rams are too good. The Seahawks are too good. Everyone else in the NFC is too good. They just keep finding a way to win. And, all indicators, they lost to them a couple weeks ago. It was ugly. The offense played poorly. Everything in me is saying the Seattle Seahawks, you got to pick them. But it's just something about this 49ers team where they're just hanging around. And when you you got to finish them off, right? You can't let them hang around. You can't let them have the confidence. You can't let them make 1 or 2 or 3 plays because, I think if that's the case, they find a way to squeak one out at Seattle in what's going to be another very hostile environment on 8 o'clock Saturday night.
Well, Joey, you bring up or Brian brings up the tradition and certain things that San Francisco finds a way to stick around and play in big games like this. I'm just got to go there. Sam Darnold has proven that in some of the biggest games, in the most important games, he'll throw the ball to the wrong color jersey or wrong colored helmet. He's been prone to do that. Is there finally a chance for him to get that monkey off his back like Steve Young did when they win the Super Bowl against San Francisco and just basically tells Gary Plummer, take this monkey off my back? Is this what Sam Darnold needs to get him to the next level? They're the number 1 seed. They were a couple years ago when he was with the Vikings. For obvious reasons, this is a big, important game for him too, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But I think I think everybody around Seattle is a lot more comfortable with Sam. The last couple games of the season, I thought that was really the headline, the topic. Can he do this? Can he get Seattle the number 1 seed? Can he not turn the ball over? And he doesn't have to play a perfect game. He just needs to play pretty much a turnover-free game. And if he can do that defensively, they're good enough. Get the ball. If they can run the ball at a pretty nice pace. He's got Jackson Smith and Jigman to throw the ball to on the outside, who's a all-pro player. So he's got some pieces. He's got a pretty good tight end there. So it doesn't have to. He needs to understand it doesn't have to be all on his shoulder. And I think he did a much better job of doing that the last couple of weeks of the season. And I think some of that helped people change their mind about Sam.
Yeah, and Brian, Jackson Smith and Jigma has been one of your favorites now for a couple of years. You've really enjoyed what he's able to do. I can just imagine him running some deep corner routes or just some out routes, turning somebody around, making a big play, stepping out of bounds, after a 12, 15-yard game, keeping the sticks moving and being such an integral part of the offense.
Yeah, this Niners defense, which, plug and play, right? Salah's done a phenomenal job. I talked about it yesterday. It's just they're finding ways to make it work, right? Everyone's coming in, and it's the Belichick, and they're doing their job. Now, they activated Fred Warner off IR. I don't know how he plays, right? Because I remember
they opened up a 21-day window, so which means he won't play. He can't be activated until because he's got to go through practice now. So he hadn't been able to practice, but now they opened that window. So while he probably couldn't play this weekend, they could activate him if for the championship game or the Super Bowl. Yeah,
but I wonder if that's just a motivational tool, right? Hey guys, we want more, we can get him back, right? Which I'm gonna be honest, I don't see any possibility how right. His foot was sideways. I remember seeing it was one of those. I didn't want to watch the TV anymore. I said, oh, that's one of those injuries where you feel really bad for the guy. But that was just a couple months ago, and for him to come back, I saw a video of him, doing some coverage drills. And I'm like, man, the fact that he's at this point, alone, even if he doesn't play, it's still, it's still an incredible feat by him. I wonder if it's more so like what Rodgers was doing. Hey, let's just stay in the hunt. He's with the Jets. As long as we stay alive, right? I can come back. I can help us out, whatever it might be. But, there's just this Niners team there's nothing really to point out. They have Christian McCaffrey and Brock Purdy's great. They got Trent Williams, but there's nobody else on this roster at this juncture that really scares you. But as a unit, they just play so well together. It's like, I'm going to compare them to like a colony of ants, right? One ant doesn't scare you, but when you put them all together and they all start attacking, whatever it is, food or another bug or whatever it is, they find a way to get it done, and they find a way to overpower you. And you could ask Philadelphia. They're probably still scratching their head. How do we lose this game to these guys, right? We got backups and backups, and they're coming to our house and they're beating us, and they got a ton of momentum. They got a ton of confidence. And I think they arguably have the best coach in football right now in Kyle Shanahan. And it's just, they're finding a way to get it done.
Well, I mentioned Jackson Smith-Njigba. You didn't mention anything about him, and that's fine. I'm just,
I did plenty during the year. I did plenty of that.
119 catches, 1,793 yards and 10. He was averaging 100 yards, a little more than about 110 yards a game.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely amazing. And one of the reasons why their passing offense has been so dynamite throughout the course of the season. Be a great game at 8:00. The fans will be all liquored up. They'll have wine and spritzer if they were in San Francisco, and they're going to have Starbucks with some schnapps in it or something like that when they're in Seattle. But should be a great game. It's on Fox. 8:00 is the kick Eastern time. 49ers go to Seattle. Next game we're going to look at is a Sunday game. Two great defenses. Joey, I'll start with you. Brian mentioned what Houston and if Seattle ends up going to the Super Bowl, the over-under will probably be 8, maybe 9.5. But right now, they're bringing a mediocre offense in against one of the best, or as a great defense, going against everything that the Patriots have. Passing, rushing, scoring, giving up. They're in top 10, really in top 5 in just about every single category. Your thoughts?
This again will be an interesting game. I mean, we don't know what the weather would be in Foxborough for the game, but they just the Texans just came back from Pittsburgh and it was cold there, so they'll be used to it for a dome team. They'll be used to playing in the cold. And again, defense travels. I mean, we can see. I mean, the swarm that they put on Pittsburgh a couple nights ago, last night. They'll bring that to Drake May, and that'll be tough because. Drake will have to make quicker decisions, getting rid of the ball quicker. He can't hold it in the pocket as long. So it'll be interesting. Now they have Stephon Diggs, and guess what? If they want to put Stingley on Diggs and shut him down all night, they could probably do that. The Patriots do have a young receiver core with the exception of Diggs, and they're actually pretty good. So it'll be a pretty good matchup. And on a defensive perspective, I mean, the Patriots' defensive line is pretty good. They don't have the great rushers on the edge, but up front they can get C.J. Stroud off the spot and make him uncomfortable. Like anybody that has a chance to beat them is uncomfortable. Now I'm not sure Gonzalez, their top corner, will be able to play. He's in concussion protocol, and if he's not able to play, then obviously they're weakened in the secondary, which would be problematic during this game. But it's despite the Patriots being the number 1 seed and playing at home, if the Texans can play defense the way they played last week, they have a chance to ride this thing a long way.
Number 1 defense in the league, Brian, is Seattle. We mentioned them just a moment ago. Number 2 is Houston. Number 3 is Denver, and the 4th best is this New England Patriots defense. I certainly didn't expect them to be that high, but for obvious reasons, they're number 4 in passing, number 6 in rushing, number 2 in scoring, and 4th in defense, as I just mentioned. Patriots are loaded. You would figure that this is a Brady and Belichick team, but it's really not. It's a bunch of young guys that are playing. They're playing lights out for Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, this is one of those games where it's going to be kind of interesting because Drake May last week, he wasn't asked to do a whole heck of a lot, right? This was an ailing Chargers team. Talent-wise, they just weren't up to par with what the Patriots were. They're at home. The crowd was phenomenal. It was, obviously an environment they're very used to, that sort of ordeal in Foxborough. But this is a whole different animal that they're going to be facing on Sunday because I think, the Texans have the blueprint to win these kind of games, right? It's just we're going to get you off your spot. We're going to disrupt you. I think they're built to do that, especially on defense. We bragged about their defense all year. They're very, very solid top to bottom. There's really no weaknesses here. And it's going to be one of those things where we talked about Drake May. He's probably the MVP runner-up. I think some people might, consider him the MVP of the league ahead of Stafford. But at very least, I think he's going to finish second in the voting. And I think at some point he's going to have to start playing kind of vintage, right? He's going to have some vintage playoff moments, some memorable plays. He's going to have to do something probably spectacular, maybe multiple times. Like I mentioned with Josh Allen earlier going on the road to Denver. It's just this team is so good, and they're able to do everything really, really well. I think Stingley has I think he's got an outside voice to say he's maybe the best corner in the league right now, right? Based on his numbers and his production and how little receiving yards and catches he's given up. But it's going to be hard to pick against this Texans defense. It really is. I think they're, we talked about them coming into the playoffs. Them in Jacksonville, they haven't lost for months, and they're very disruptive, and they're built for the playoffs. They can run the football, which they proved on Sunday. And, if you go back and you watch the tape yesterday against Pittsburgh, they looked built for the cold. The defense looked comfortable, right? It was just one of those things where the weather didn't really get them off their spot. They looked great. They were riled up. They had a ton of momentum, and it didn't really deter them at all. So if New England's banking on that, I think they're going to be in some trouble. But I really think it's going to come down to the two quarterbacks, who's going to play better. And I think CJ Stroud has the advantage in that regard, because I don't think he's going to have to do as much, just because his Texans defense is just top to bottom. They're just so very stout.
New England's favored by 3. 40.5 is the over-under, and the weather, 35 degrees is what they estimate at kickoff, which is a 3 o'clock kick for this one. Joey, there's going to be a lot of punting, I would think, with both these defenses, right? Special teams obviously going to come into play here a little bit, but Drake May with 4,300, just during the regular season, just shy of 4,400 yards, 31 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Brian mentioned how critical he's going to be, but Henderson rushed for 911 yards, 9 touchdowns. They're well balanced. They can do a lot of things that hopefully play action, get somebody to suck up just a little bit from a linebacker position, throw over the top of them, get the sticks moving and keep the drives going. What else does New England have to do from an offensive perspective? Does Drake May have to go play beyond his limit, or has he got enough guys around him that are going to take care of him?
Well, I think a little bit of both. I think he needs to have a good game for them to win this game, but also they have to be able to run the ball. If you can't run the ball versus this Texans defense, and you're a predominantly passing team, and you have to drop back 40 times, that's probably not a good plan to keep your quarterback upright versus this team. So they have to establish the run game. If they can establish the run game and make the offensive play call a lot more balanced, I think they'll have a good chance. I really do, because I don't think the Texans run the ball particularly well at times. They'll depend on Stroud, and they'll get into just like versus the Steelers early. They punted a lot, and if that happens, I don't think you can punt a lot. You can keep giving the Patriots offense that many chances to score. So I think the Patriots can win if they're balanced. But I'm telling you, if they can stop the run, if the Texans can stop the run and make Drake May have to throw the ball 40 times, I think that's a recipe for the Texans to win the game.
Brian, is that something you agree with, or is there another way for the Patriots in terms of offensive power? A couple of punts here and there, but to get field position, but you got to stick it in and get the ball in the end zone when you get those lucky breaks. I bring that up because Pittsburgh had the ball, first and goal from the 7, 4 chances they weren't even able to score. Didn't even try a field goal. So Texas defense has shown and proved from a playoff perspective they've got what it takes, and they are for real, and you better pay attention to what they can do.
The interesting thing, too, is we talked about Christian Gonzalez and him maybe not suiting up because of the concussion, but Nico Collins is in the same boat. So we might be without the best defensive back for the Patriots and the best receiver for the Texans. So it might be two things that kind of cancel each other out. But Christian Kirk, I think, is going to have another big game if that's the case. I think Woody Marks, I think it's one of those things where Schultz and everybody, all the position guys, all the skill guys are going to have to step up. Everyone's going to do a little bit more, right? I need maybe 1 or 2 more catches from this guy. I need maybe 20 or 30 more total yards from you. It's this Texans team does it by committee, right? We've talked about it. They are a a well-oiled machine. They've got all pros. They got talent everywhere. But as a unit, they play really, really well. And that's, on the defensive side. But the offensive side, they're the same thing, right? They go as CJ goes, but when they're running the ball, when the offensive line is doing a good job protecting him up front, when the receivers are getting open downfield, when everyone's doing their job, this offense, clicks. They're not going to overpower you, but they do enough to win games because they understand I don't need to score 35 points, right? If we find the end zone 2 to 3 times, we have a phenomenal chance to win this football game. I think that's going to be the same mentality coming in. Don't try to do too much. You don't have to play hero ball, and maybe, like what they do with Aaron Rodgers, get some pressure on him, maybe force a turnover. Maybe they can find a defense or special teams touchdown somewhere in there. And just do what the Texans have done all season. It's just find a way to win football games. And they beat some very good teams, and they've, in certain instances, they've been incredibly dominant.
Yeah, especially with playoff football, it'll be critical for Houston's offense to not go 3 and out and punt every time they get the ball. They're going to have to get some first downs, get across midfield, get a field goal attempt, or at least a couple in the first half, just to show that they can run with them, because the 3 and out and put the defense back out there again, after a while, that will wear you down, and you don't want to get worn down on the road, especially in a place like Foxborough. So interesting game. 3:00. Go ahead, Joey.
No, and I think the Patriots offense with Josh McDaniels would be a lot more creative. Pittsburgh was limited what they could do from a creativity standpoint, but I think the Patriots, I think they'll be a lot more creative. They'll run a trick play or two. They'll do things to loosen that defense up that the Steelers couldn't do. You knew exactly where the Steelers were going to be every play. When they lined up on offense, no one scared you. You knew exactly where they were going to be. I don't think that'll be the same thing with the Patriots, because I think Josh McDaniels does. He for everything he lacked as a head coach on a couple occasions, he has that in spades as an offensive coordinator. So I think they'll have an advantage offensively because of Josh McDaniels. Yeah,
and you mentioned Travion Henderson and Diggs, and they do have a lot of, but tight ends down the middle. Hunter, they've got some weapons, and absolutely that'll be a real key for that. 3:00 kick there, and Foxborough Stadium, about 35 degrees. We'll be the host of another divisional playoff game. Boy, they've had so many over the years. Over the past 20, it's just amazing. But this is a different group, and first time. But they're the number 2 seed, and they will be taking on the Houston Texans. Next game that we're going to look at is a 6:30 start. This will be on NBC Peacock. Rams and Bears. A lot of reasons to like Los Angeles, Joey. Stafford is, what did he throw for? 46 touchdowns. He had 8 interceptions. His numbers are amazing, but little by little, there have been a number of injuries that the Rams have had to go through right now. They're a little dinged up. They had a great win just a couple of days ago, but they got to go to Chicago. It will be 18 degrees. At least that's what the estimate is here at kickoff. Is that a difference maker, or is because they went to Philadelphia and it was really cold and snowy? Do they have the experience that it takes? That it's not the weather. It's going to have to be the Bears that beat us.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be the Bears that beat them. I think, the last couple years, they've been on the road in the playoffs and really performed well. Last year when they didn't beat Philly in the snow game, they really could have. You know what I mean? So they played well enough to win that game. Now going into Chicago, it's going to be cold in Chicago. I'm not sure what the Rams defensively will look like, because they have not played their best for the last 4 or 5 weeks. So I'm not sure what's going on there, that the lack of consistency that they have. But if they can get to Caleb, and they can get Caleb off the spot early and get enough of a lead to where Chicago's not coming back and winning the game at the end, which they're starting to call him Cardiac Caleb, as I said last night, because of all the comeback victories. The Rams offensively, they have enough to get it done. They run the ball fairly well. They have 2 receivers to throw to. Obviously, Parkinson, I believe that's the tight end that has become a valuable member of that offense, and he made the big time catch last weekend. So the Rams feel comfortable on the road, so that doesn't bother me. So I would pick the Rams, despite Chicago being the number 3 seed or 2 seed, whatever they are. But if it becomes, if it's close at the end, I'm a little afraid, because Chicago has found a way to win close games.
Brian, a couple years ago, the Bears and the Falcons were both clamoring to be the number one rushing team in the National Football League, and the Bears ended up doing it, but they only won like 4 or 5 games. Now they've got the number 3 rushing offense in the league, and they're playing in the playoffs, and they're at home. It's 18 degrees. They're going against the number 1 scoring team in the league in the Rams, but being able to keep the sticks moving and just pounding the ball. I remember that 85 game with the Rams going to Chicago and Dieter Brock and playing against Hampton and McMichael and Richard Dent and Wilbur Marshall and Mike Singletary and everybody who Fensick they were just unstoppable. Eric Dickerson had one big run, but other than that, it was embarrassing. And do the Bears have what it takes from an offensive perspective to put that type of pressure on the Rams to force them to have to score every time they get the ball in the second half?
I think they do, but I think if you go back and you watch the tape from last week, I think that was Ben Johnson's, ideology coming in, right? We got to go for it on these 4th downs. We got to keep it moving. We got to control the ball. We got to put points on the board. And I think that mentality almost cost them the game. I think the issue is going to be this. They're going to have to trust on that front 7 on defense is going to have to play well. And they lose TJ Edwards for the season. They lose their starting left tackle at the very end of that game. So for me, the big question marks coming in are, can they protect Caleb up front, and can the front 7 hold up? Because they got a couple other guys that are questionable. I think they'll probably play, but they got a couple other guys that are questionable in their defense coming into this one, because the Rams are just as built for this as the Bears are. They have a 2-headed monster running back as well. They got a very good offensive line. I don't need Matthew Stafford to do too much. And if it's one of those things where I got to stack the box, and even though it's going to be cold, I don't know what the weather is going to be, it's probably going to be nasty. But if they can run that play action, get the ball at the tight end, get Puka Nacua in space, maybe throw it deep to Devontae Adams once or twice just to keep you honest. I think more so than anything, the Bears defense is going to have to play solid early, right? They're going to have to send a message, make a statement. This team has been, very, very turnover dependent for the majority of the season. And you have a guy in Matthew Stafford, which if you look at his numbers and this team in general, they really don't turn the ball over a ton. So something's going to have to give there. And I think more so than anything, because Colston, Loveland, and this receiver core are very good, right? They can get open. They can create opportunities down the field for Caleb. They got Monunga. They got Swift as a 2-headed monster at running back. When I compare these offenses, they're very, very similar. I don't think the Bears have the receiving core. At least they got some younger guys that have to figure it out, and they're not where Nacua and Adams are yet. But I think it's really going to come down to the Bears front 7. And like Joey mentioned, the Rams defense has not been – it's been kind of a shell of itself the last month or so. And can they kind of right the ship and figure it out against a team that is ailing? I mean, you got a backup left tackle. Most defensive ends, most guys are going to be licking their chops and saying, hey, if we can stop the run and put them in passing situations, we can feast on them in the 3rd and 4th quarter and hopefully take care of business.
Joey, there are times where people go, what was Caleb thinking when he made that throw? There isn't anyone in the world that would do that. And then there are other times where go, what on earth did he do to get that ball in there? Because it's almost like a tale of 2 quarterbacks when you look at it, but he tries. He knows he can do certain things that some other guys on the field aren't even capable of doing, and he tries to thread the needle on a few occasions. What I liked is the way that they're weaving with their tight ends in the last game of the season against Detroit, where Detroit had no idea how to stop these guys, because you go with the short tight end and the out, and then there was another tight end that was just behind him running an in route, and then there was a third guy running a post right behind him. Caleb all had a window on the right side of him there he could throw to either one of the 3 guys. I mentioned this a little while ago. It almost looked like Oregon's offense. It was just men amongst boys, and they sliced and diced. They didn't win the ball game, but they were doing things offensively. Your thoughts here on Caleb and how important it is for him here in his 2nd playoff game at home in his young career, and going against a formidable Ram offense that's led the league in scoring?
Well, I think it's part of his maturation process going into this. He started slow again with a new head coach and offense coordinator, and each week he's gotten better and better and better. So going into the playoffs, this is a new environment. Playoff football is completely different than regular season football. You have to be able to play physical brand of football, and they showed a level of physicality versus Green Bay last week. And then for them to be down 21-3 or 21-6, whatever it was, and come back and win that game was really impressive. Again, he played so much better in the second half than the first half. So it continues to be level of maturation for him, and this game will be even bigger versus the Rams. And the Rams, he's going into this game down as left tackle. So again, they'll have to establish the run game, and if they can do that, the play action game that Chicago does, and a lot of things that Ben Johnson like to do from a spreading out the offense and giving you a lot of different eye candy, and then coming back in the fourth quarter and running the same play as you talked about, and it looks completely different. And you have three guys open because they didn't do that. They ran the same play in the first quarter, and it looked different. So I think Ben gives you a lot of different eye candy out there, and Caleb continues to grow, and I think this is all part of it. So it'll be an interesting game. If it's close, Chicago has a great chance to win this game if it's close, because they have been in a lot of close games this year.
Yeah, Brian, I mentioned that the Bears have the number 3 rushing offense in the league. Rams are 7th. Kyron Williams, 1,200 yards. What's he got? 10 touchdowns. He's been one of those guys that really go to. Talk a little bit about the importance of the offensive line for the Rams and how critical it'll be for them to keep the ball on the ground and keep the sticks moving in the running game.
I think both these teams went about it very similarly. The bell cows, the workhorses earlier in the year. You had the Kyron Williams for the Rams. You had Swift for the Bears. And as the season went on, they started to trust the secondary guys, right? The younger running backs, Monangai for Chicago and Blake Corum for the Rams. They start putting them in the fold a little bit, right? Maybe throw them in, some key fourth quarter situations, maybe some third downs. Start acclimating them to this sort of environment, right? Because the idea is going to be this. Obviously, your fewer plays, everything's magnified, whatever. But the idea is we want everybody to be fresh. We want everybody at their best, right? So Kyron rips off a big run. He can come out for a play or two, right? And he rests. And we trust Blake Corum to come in and not miss a beat and to continue on with what he's done. And the Bears, it's the same thing with Monangai. He's had, if you go back and look at their last months, they were very solid down the stretch. I think there was a game I think both teams had games where both running backs were either right at 100 yards, just shy of it, or right around there with both running backs. And that's a very impressive feat to be able to say, hey, we can plug in a guy and not miss a beat. He can do things that the other guy, and maybe they kind of complement each other in certain situations. But that's kind of become the mantra in the league, right? That's what Ben Johnson did in Detroit, and it worked very, very well. That's what, the Rams, maybe that wasn't the intention with Blake Corum, but they're like, hey, we found something. We found a guy that we can use. He's a weapon. We love what he does offensively, and we think he can help our football team win games. I think both of these teams, like I mentioned, they're mirrors of each other in that regard. They try to do a lot of things very similarly. I think the only issue right now is the Bears are a little younger at receiver, with the exception of DJ Moore, and I think they're still learning and growing. And obviously, Stafford, being one of the elder statesmen in the league, is going to have some experience, and he's going to have, some know-how over Caleb Williams. But I think Chicago very sneakily is kind of looking at what the Rams are doing and say, hey, we could very easily repeat what this team is doing, and we can kind of follow suit and, maybe find success. And maybe it's one of those things where they come out and they kind of use a game plan, the Bears do, that is, on Sunday, to where, hey, we're going to do what you do. We're going to kind of hit you in the mouth and maybe hopefully get on you early, and you don't know what happens, and maybe, find a way to sneak out a win at home, as crazy as that sounds here in the playoffs.
6:30 on NBC Peacock Network. 4 great games. Guys, did we miss anything between the Bills, Broncos, 49ers, Seahawks, Texans on the road against the Patriots, and then finally the Rams and the Bears? What did we miss? Joey, I'll start with you.
Well, I don't know if we missed anything. I think that they will be 4 really good games. Again, I'm going to say the team that can play the most balance, who can really run the ball on offense, will probably win the game, because you have 3 teams that are playing right now, and really 4, except 2 of those teams are playing against each other. But you have 4 teams who are in the top 4 in the National Football League in defense. Yeah. So I'm not sure how many times that's ever happened. So the 4 best defensive units in the National Football League are all playing this week. So that tells you, defense will be at a premium. I mean, the scoring should be at a premium this week with the level of defense that's we're about to see this weekend. Yeah,
the highest over-under is 48.5, and that's for the Rams at the Bears. So nobody thinks there's going to be a tremendous amount, not like a 35-25 game, nothing like that. But Brian, final thoughts from you.
Well, I kind of think we hit the nail on the head with all the talking points, but I'll add on to what Joey said. I think the weakest defense left in the tournament is Chicago, and they led the league in takeaways. So again, it's just, defense. We talk about it, you preach it. Defense wins championships. I don't know if you can really use that mantra here, because I think every single team, that's still left is going to say, hey, we got to play defense. We got to, that's our bread and butter. That's what we're relying on. But I think, like I mentioned, I think a lot of low scoring games the rest of the way. I wouldn't be surprised. You got a lot of cold weather teams. You got a lot of low scoring, defenses. And I think because of that, I think the mistakes are going to be magnified, not just because of the playoffs, but just because of the play styles of these teams going forward the rest of the way.
Well, there you have it, everybody. The opinions of Joey Clinkscales, Brian LeBel, and myself. Wild card weekend is over, and now it's divisional playoff. And as the boys mentioned, it is going to be 4 of the top defenses in the league. The teams that are still part of the playoff action, they will be playing this Saturday, and Sunday games start at 4:30 on Saturday. Final game is at 6:30 on Sunday. Plenty to watch and keep yourself tuned into. We appreciate you being a part of it. For Joey Clinkscales, for Brian LeBel, I'm Harper LeBel saying thank you for tuning in, everybody. Please subscribe and tell somebody if you enjoyed the show. We appreciate you being a part of the network of 100 Yards of Football. We want to thank you very much and have a great